is our little pre-show banter before we actually go live on the sites for tonight's big debate. Big debate, Kurt Schlichter. Are you feeling the
A
excitement?
master debate.
You are a master
I
debater.
want to die right now.
You hate these things.
I've been you and I have been texting all day, and I keep saying, I don't want to do this.
I know.
But I know that our people demand it.
They do. The people would have no less. Think of the people that we are helping with this extravaganza tonight. That's the base you could do. You could just retweet it with this. That's the entirety of your effort.
What do you want? A freaking novel?
Did you see what Brian Stelter did?
No, he blocked me. Also, I'm cutting back on carbs.
Oh, this is so. I tagged you on this. This is amazing. So apparently, Alan Covert. You know Alan Covert, the actor?
Yes, he's an LA guy.
So Alan Covert responded to Brian Stelter and said, Brian Stelter is a potato. And Brian Stelter liked the tweet. And so
you're saying he's Irish.
There's all these other people jumping on the thing. And so I just retweeted it saying more proof that Kurt Schlichter has literally changed the world.
You know, oh God, there it is.
Stelter is now liking posts calling him a potato.
God, he better unfollow. He better unblock and start following me.
Yeah, no, he blocked me. He and Oliver Dorsey both. I love it when a media reporter blocks you on Twitter. When you're a member of the media and the media reporter blocks you, but that's a whole other story. Hey, we are live here. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, wow. Did you see how Hugh Hewitt utilized him?
Oh, yeah. That Hugh Hewitt interview, that was amazing. That's where Hugh Hewitt is just head and shoulders above everyone in this business because he uses his lawyer skills for those questioning. It's amazing. I've
stolen the be very nice to them at the beginning and don't, as one of my tactics, I always beat the hell out of them. But just go at them and be very, very polite. I did that with Mike Allen and Stephanie Ruhle when I guested for Hugh, and I got interesting results. I didn't disrespect them. They just got into positions they didn't want to be in.
Yep, that's what happens. All right, guys. Hey, we are live across the Townhall Media platforms, including Facebook and YouTube, I believe. And I'm Larry O'Connor in the Washington, D.C. area. That's Kurt Schlichter in the Los Angeles area. And we're going to be giving you coverage of tonight's debate, which will begin 25 minutes from now. Right now it's 8:35 Eastern time. The debate is live from Cleveland. We also, by the way, have live blogging going on with the entire political staff from Townhall Media. They're live in our Rosslyn offices. And they're giving you live blogging. So everything that you need for your debate coverage pleasure is right here at townhall.com. You don't have to go anywhere else. In fact, Kurt, I've been mentioning this on radio today as well, and I'm glad to mention it here at townhall.com. You should not watch this on television. You should not give broadcast media, broadcast news, cable news the benefit of your eyeballs or your ratings or your attention because they have not earned it. You should watch it on a site like this at Townhall, or you should listen to it on talk radio, and you'll get just as good, a better experience, frankly.
Oh, a much better experience, much like. No, you're absolutely right. And I think we're going to say, interesting things, fun things. I'm going to complain a lot because, like I said, I don't want to be here. I don't want to watch this.
So were you planning on not watching the debate at all until I
would not have watched it. I would not have watched it.
Watch the highlights
you say, hey, Kurt, come watch it with me. And I'm like, it's Larry. I'm going to do it. Larry needs me. I'm there. My town hall people need me. I'm there.
That's the most important part. We are providing a service to town hall readers and viewers that is necessary tonight.
Yeah, it's just it's just a potentially very important thing or potentially very unimportant thing that could be a huge success for us or a huge disaster. Much like my dogs. Jackie, would you silence the animals? Thank you.
I do like the underground aspect of how we go about doing this. Listen, we're going to
give a little it's bit like in the house.
We're going to give some pre-debate analysis here over the next 20 minutes or so. And then when the debate itself actually starts, that will dominate the screen here. Kurt and I will just be in little boxes in the corner here.
It'll dominate the screen, much like
not unlike a shame-filled bulwark writer
Thank-
trying to figure out
Thank you.
exactly how they can collude with Russia while watching their loved one with the garden boy. So here's where I'm torn, Kurt, because as you know, I don't think there's going to be any commercial breaks during this thing. It's going to be 90 minutes of Chris Wallace.
No, no, you're going to have to hold it. Well, and if you've got prostate trouble, that's a challenge.
Well, think about poor Joe Biden at this point.
That's what I'm thinking.
He's got to have a suppository or a male diaper or something. No, but I'm curious, less concerned with the candidates as I am concerned with us. How much should we be talking through this thing? I mean, I want to feel like we're just sitting in a living room watching this thing together, where we would just jabber the entire time and just mock these people. But I don't know.
I think we should add. Our viewers will tell us, "Hey, idiot, shut up!" if we're talking too much. But true. I think we should. I think we should listen and. Think of it as this is our Twitter timeline, except you don't have to bother reading.
There you go. Or tweeting. Or we don't have to bother tweeting, although we might tweet as we go as well. Boy, hell of a conglomeration of big stories breaking today right before the debate, not least of which...
And sinking beneath the waves.
DNI Ratcliffe releases this memo to Lindsey Graham saying, oh, yeah, the intelligence community knew in July that Hillary Clinton dreamed up the whole Russian collusion thing. And oh, by the way, they notified James Comey and Peter Strzok in September. And the FBI, of course, never investigated that. Instead, they actually doubled down on investigating Trump when they knew the whole thing was a farce.
These facts would seem important. I was under the impression that this whole Russia thing was a really important thing. So we've had two giant revelations in like 72 hours about Russia. That's the Tucker Carlson way of saying it. We've had two giant revelations. One, Trump has no business ties to Russia. And two, oh yeah, Hillary invented all this. And you would think that these would be important stories that because we were told that Trump-Russia is the most important story ever was. I would think that these would be important stories. And yet they don't seem to be that important to the mainstream media. I'm puzzled. Yeah, he said facetiously.
Let me read you. This is the document that James Comey and Peter Strzok received from U.S. intelligence in September 2016, 2 months before the election, Kurt. This is exactly what it said. U.S. presidential candidate Hillary Clinton's approval of a plan concerning presidential candidate Donald Trump and Russian hackers hampering U.S. elections as a means of distracting the public from her use of a private email server. That's what it literally said from U.S. intelligence that James Comey received. And he did, well, forget about doing nothing. He actually went and just ignored it and went along with the hoax.
Well, look, I mean, this is when, Lindsey Graham has some of her staffers take those transcripts from the Strzok and Andrew McCabe testimony and go over them and look for more lies. But of course, if they lie, they're not going to get prosecuted. And of course, you can't dismiss a frame job against a conservative, as we saw today in court. Just yay.
Did you just regender Lindsey Graham?
Lindsey Graham can be whatever Lindsey Graham wants to be. I'm not sure.
Well, I was just saying, I'm not sure. I think either you deliberately mixed up pronouns or accidentally. Either way, it's hilarious, and I'm glad you did it. But
well, if he put them in his bio like a normal person.
Are you he, they right now, by the way? You're a they, last time I checked. That's how potent you are. There's like
I'm a mass. I'm your Majesty and your Highness. Those are my pronouns. I don't think they're pronouns, but I'm not going to be pronoun shamed by them.
Those are not pronouns in any way whatsoever.
I went to public school. You know that.
Have you ever had a third party inspect to see if you're wearing an electronic device in your ear? I'm just curious. And what exactly would that look like?
I don't work for the Bulwark. Ear.
Ear. Sorry, different orifice.
Gotcha.
We're having connection issues.
I was a little
across the country.
Yeah, that was
via satellite. Sorry.
Is that thing on? Ear. No, I have not had anyone have to check me to make sure I wasn't getting radioed instructions from somebody because I'm on the verge of complete mental collapse.
Here's the thing. It's not that Joe Biden needs actual lines delivered to him and answers to questions in the little electronic device in his ear. It only serves one purpose. Every 2.5 minutes, there's somebody on the other side of the mic saying, Joe, wake up. It's still a debate. Joe, wake up.
You're still debating.
Keep almost
your
cartoon
on.
time.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I think he's going to be overly. Here's why I think it's going to happen. He's going to bound out onto the stage overly perky.
Yeah.
I think he's because I don't know.
He got his vitamin shot. Is that why?
Yeah.
Adderall was actually trending today on Twitter. I loved that.
Hunter. Yay. Hey, fat. Come here. Bring a mirror and a razor.
How many times is Trump going to say, "Where's Hunter" tonight? He's gonna. If that's your take a shot for the drinking game, you are so screwed tonight.
Oh, I am not drinking tonight.
No, nor am I. In fact, now's a good time to tell everybody across the town hall spectrum that immediately. So, Kurt, let me just let everybody know. At the end of the debate, Kurt, you got to wrap things up because I got to duck out a few minutes early because I'm doing live post-debate radio coverage on KABC in Los Angeles,
nice.
where y'all can follow along and call in there if you'd like on KABC. But so I got a lot ahead of me tonight. I can't be drinking, although normally I would be.
Drinking and stinking.
Let me ask you this, Kurt, because all this stuff about Biden needing drugs and Biden needing a earpiece and Biden needing a break every 30 minutes, all that. This is all contributing to this false narrative that lowers the expectations on him. It's like the guy only has to show up, not fall down, not drool on himself, not call Trump Kamala or Obama, and he's won. They've already written the post-debate analysis that he, exceeded expectations.
I wrote the post-debate analysis in my VIP column, which has gone out to VIP members already. I already wrote it. It drops officially at midnight. So, I mean, look, I just, the nice thing is, first of all, I think we're pretty sophisticated about these things. I think most of the people, I think a lot of people are going to watch this. They want to see if Joe's going to, is that Biden out there? No, that's Pence. Somebody's out there. I'm watching on the other screen.
Yes, they are. There's somebody out. There's a woman out there, Janet Brown, the Commission on Presidential Debates. The executive director is giving a little bit of an intro. Although I don't know who she's giving it to because there's no audience.
It's like 8 people.
Yeah,
there's like 8 people, and they've all got diapers around their mugs.
By the way, can I just say I'm going against the grain here. I'm glad there's not an audience. There doesn't need to be an audience for this thing. And I'm okay with it.
Trump gets energized by it, I think. But I don't know. Here's the thing. Joe's done this 38 times.
Yeah.
He's debated. This is his 38th debate. It's probably Trump's 15th. I saw him once live in Vegas. And he's good.
Well, but
and Biden's competent, or was.
If you take Biden's Senate races going all the way back to 1972 into account, almost all of his debates have been one-on-one, right? I mean, Trump has only been in 3 one-on-one debates with Hillary Clinton, which is a very different thing being one of 15 people,
But the nice thing is there's, Trump is a master of dealing with the media, and he's been practicing it. He was at that town hall, right, in Pennsylvania for the undecided registered Democrats rounded up by ABC and that malignant dwarf Stephanopoulos.
They just hadn't decided how many times they're going to vote for Biden yet. That was what was undecided.
I've got 5 ballots. I may only do 2.
Yeah.
I might just hold 1 back if you convince me. But that's Trump's practice. Trump's been going to hostile audience. He's been dealing with them. He did the press conferences every single day for like 2 months.
Right. He's been defeating Jim Acosta in debates. Yeah.
Well, that's let's talk about tripping a cripple, but he's they should both be capable of doing this, and they both have the capacity to perform competently.
Yeah.
If Joe Biden doesn't wet himself, but doesn't distinguish himself, the story will be Joe Biden shows he's competent and aware, and all that prep work, which director George Romero will be, will have been vindicated. But
you're right. The headline will be tantamount to Biden didn't suck, which is a success at this point, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, and it is ridiculous. But I don't think Joe Biden not sucking is going to lose Trump any votes. I don't think it's going to gain. I don't think it'll gain Biden any votes. I just think it won't hurt Biden.
Right.
I mean, I don't think there's anyone going, well, I don't know. Look, if he screws up, that's the problem. The risk is bigger for Biden. Look, Trump could come out wearing boxer shorts. They borrowed from Brad Parscale, with a Michelob and a Philly Blunt, and go, where my bitches at? And I'd be like, I'm still voting for him.
He's Florida man. He's just Florida man. Really... Oh,
but,
man.
No, I mean, I don't. It's going to take a lot for him to lose any of his dedicated voters. Biden, on the other hand, I think he could cause a number of people to stay home. I mean, obviously, there's a chance, if Trump came out and go,
uninspiring.
Hitler, that would be bad, and I think that would be, besides very unexpected, it would be, it would hurt him.
Look, Lawrence O'Donnell and Juan Williams would still explain why it was a brilliant statement, though. You don't understand. He's operating at a whole other level. Jennifer Rubin will write a column, "The Brilliance of Praising Hitler" for Joe Biden.
Yeah, he's moving into he's moving into the people we think support Trump. He's making a play for that audience, the Stormfront guys.
God. Oh God.
No, I mean, look, I think Biden has more to lose. And I think he can do more damage to himself. I think that means Trump has more to gain. I don't think Trump has as much to lose.
Yeah, I think that's probably so. I think it is. It's different. When Obama debated Romney the first time, for a lot of people, it was the first glimpse of Mitt Romney. They knew Obama for 4 years. They'd never really seen Romney at that presidential level, at the equal to to Barack Obama, and he did very well in that first debate. I remember I was in Colorado for that debate, covering it for Breitbart at the time, and that the Obama people literally didn't even send anyone into the spin room. It was so obvious that he had gotten killed. That phenomenon is not going to happen here. Oh, he did. Oh, absolutely. Until Candy Crowley then came in. That phenomenon won't be here because we've seen Biden at this level. There's no surprise here. There's no, oh, hey, Biden is okay. No, we know who Biden is. We've seen him for the last 5 decades, for God's sake.
Yeah. Also, I'm not sure 100 million people are going to watch this.
Really? I do.
I've talked to a number of people, a surprising number of people. And, our friend Matt Bentley's really excited about it. But that's like the only guy I know who's excited about it. Of course, he's a Marine. He's excited about anything shiny.
I wouldn't say anyone's excited about it, but I do think people are going to be watching. I think
it'll be a big audience, but I don't think, the world's going to come to a stop. And if you go to the supermarket, nobody will be there.
And by the way, nor should it. I mean, if your world is stopping because 2 old politicians are yelling at each other 5 weeks before an election, you're doing it wrong. Okay. Now, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're getting our context and our analysis as we watch it tonight. It'll begin in about 8 minutes. But yeah, I mean, Kurt, people who live and die by this, that this is the only thing in their lives, they got to settle down. I mean, there's more to life, like reading Kurt's columns.
Yeah, like I said, I wanted to wake up tomorrow and just say, okay, Let me look at Twitter.
Let me tune into Larry O'Connor, my morning drive guy in LA.
Well, I do sleep into 10 a.m. all the time.
Yes, you do. I know. All right, so here we are. Let's reset here. We're about 8 minutes away from the debate starting. You'll see it live here. Kurt and I will be reduced down to little boxes, and we're going to give you running commentary on this thing. By the way, Kurt, a reminder to everybody, unlike our regular Thursday night video streaming show that's sort of, unedited, uncensored, no holds barred, because it's part of our VIP Gold chat programming. This is getting spilled out to everyone in Town Hall, Kurt. So it's not behind the paywall. It's not for VIP Gold.
Is that your way of telling me to behave?
I'm just saying. It's a slightly different audience. It's more of a
boy.
That said, if you want a little bit of the uncensored Kurt and Larry, and some surprise guests who often join us on our VIP chat, like 2 weeks ago, Dennis Miller joined us. Chris DeGaulle, a regular part of that. Chris DeGaulle, of course, our Town Hall columnist colleague. You're going to want to be a VIP member, and you're going to want to jump on board with everyone here at Town Hall, especially for the next 5 weeks leading up to this election. Other stories today that broke right before the debate. It's amazing how busy this news day was right before the debate. You wonder how much of this is going to show up on set. For instance, Chris Wallace, does he mention the latest revelations about Russian collusion? Does he ask Joe Biden, what did you know and when did you know it?
I think, well, what does Chris Wallace do? That's a great question. Yeah. Does he ask these obvious questions? And look, I think we're going to, at the end of it, we're going to go, well, he was harder on Trump. But Chris Wallace has got a huge ego. And the last thing he wants is to be demonstrably the tool of the Democrats. That's why when people are saying, well, Biden's got all the questions, I'm not buying that. I'm not buying it. And it's not because I think Chris Wallace is some sort of, moral paragon. I think it's because Chris Wallace has a giant ego and he's not going to give the questions to anybody else. And he knows that the upside.
Yeah. Go ahead. Keep going.
The upside. Well, the upside is minor. The questions aren't, what do you think of Obamacare? What do you think of endless wars? What do you think of Trump's racist, sexist, imperialist, cisgenderism? I mean, they're all obvious, but the downside is the upside is not too great. He doesn't, Biden doesn't get much out of it. But Trump, on the other hand, if it's shown like what happened with Donna Brazile, that Chris Wallace did that, he's gone. So
that's right, and that's the critical thing. As it's not like Chris Wallace is Tucker Carlson or anything, but he's still working for Fox News, and if that Fox News business model means anything, it means that you don't roll over for the likes of Joe Biden in a presidential debate. You can't. You can't be seen that way.
I don't see him cheating in the way Donna Brazile was accused of cheating. I just that would lose his reputation, and he'd be nothing. Yep. He'd be Dan Rather, a sad, pathetic punchline with a IBM printer.
I wrote today in one of my columns at Town Hall that here's the thing. Trump sat down with Chris Wallace 1 hour, face to face, no holds barred, took every question that he gave him. Yep. It was aggressive. It was belligerent. Biden's been ducking Chris Wallace. Now, if Chris Wallace has an ounce of journalistic integrity, every time he asks Joe Biden a question, it should be a question he would have asked him in a one-on-one interview. He shouldn't step in and say, well, I'm going to treat them both equally. He shouldn't, because that wouldn't be equal. He needs to be hard on Biden, because that would then equal things off in the universe of Chris Wallace.
Well, I think Chris Wallace wants to be seen as a fair journalist, and I think he's a liberal. I mean, he is a liberal. I mean, but he's got an ego, and frankly, the thing I will rely on most for him doing a good job is his ego.
Yeah, listen. When it comes to a journalist, that's probably something pretty reliable. By the way, real fast, we're about 3 minutes away from kicking it off. It's a 90-minute debate. It's going to be split into 6 15-minute segments, and each of those 15-minute segments will take a different issue. Coronavirus, their individual records, the election integrity, Supreme Court, race and violence in our cities, and then the economy. I'm not thrilled with that format because, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, the entire thing should be about their records. 47 years of Joe Biden versus 47 months of Donald Trump. How do they compare?
Well, you could rest assured that Donald Trump is not going to feel constrained by Chris Wallace's questions.
That's true. Good.
Oh, look, Chris Wallace is out talking to people, and our friend Katie Pavlik was up there. I've got the Fox on silent. Honey, if you would like to listen, I have the thing over here. If you'd like to listen, I have the thing.
Townhall's Katie Pavlich giving commentary there at Fox News. And the Ivanka Trump has just entered the room. There's Dr. Joe Biden. She's a doctor, you know, Kurt Schlichter. Dr. Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Although, just so you know, if you're in a room, if you're in a room with Joe Biden and you cut yourself and you start bleeding to death, she can do nothing for you. She is not that kind of doctor. If you have a heart attack and Joe Biden's there, you're dead. You are dead. She's not that kind of doctor. All right, Micah, we probably should put the big screen up here as Chris Wallace is addressing the small assembly there in the room. And let's have a listen to what he has to say.
There he goes.
Let's listen.
All right. Well, we're getting the sound. I'm going to take advantage of this
audio.
Moment.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you for taking my phone. Yeah, I'm going to take them upstairs because
Micah, let's grab Chris Wallace's audio if possible here. I know you're working on it. And let's mute the Schlichter household there, just in case. Here's the aforementioned Dr. Joe Biden. She's not covering her nose properly, by the way. So these are all people who are in close proximity to the President of the United States. Don't we think that they've gotten their temperature taken already? And they're all sitting several feet apart. Why do they have to keep wearing the masks while they're sitting in the chairs? Honestly, it actually goes against the protocol. And they're not talking, by the way. The purpose of the mask is so when you're talking and aspirating and things that your spittle doesn't land on somebody else. Chris Wallace, the only person up there who's actually talking, and he's probably projecting, so there probably is saliva and spittle. He's not wearing a mask. I am so... All right, so let's go back to the... Let's go. Oh, all right, we're waiting. Micah is working on our audio and our video connection. One sec there. In the meantime, there's Kurt back with us. I was just lamenting the... Oh, well, hold on, Kurt. We got to unmute you in a second. We were hearing way too many personal details of you and Arena and life in the Schlichter household. We're a few minutes away here from the thing. And honestly, the cameras right now are just panning. Ivanka Trump looks very serious in a white business suit. But she's got a game face on. I got to say, as does Eric Trump. Are you seeing? Look at they look deadly serious.
Well, I'm watching the Fox feed on my end, and for some reason, it sounds like they have it looks like they have an ad.
Oh, all right. I'm watching the C-SPAN feed here. I'm watching C-SPAN. We're 3.5 minutes away from the debate starting. Chris Wallace was just addressing, and it's mostly family members and members of the campaign and intimates. There won't be a spin room at all after this either. I had some good times at some spin rooms back in 2012. By the way, speaking of spin...
Is that what they're calling them?
No, let's stop that. Oh, here comes the First Lady, Melania Trump, entering the room. Mark Meadows, the Chief of Staff, standing and sucking up to the First Lady. Again, they're all... see, look at the Trump people know the protocols. They are sitting properly spaced, and they took their masks off. The Biden people still have their masks on. It's actually a breach of the protocol laid out by the CDC. But, you know, who are we to actually point out what the true rules are on this thing? All right, so now we are at the top of the hour. That means that networks have picked up this feed and they are beginning their openings, their pre-shows, and all of that stuff. And then within, I believe, another minute and a half, we will actually go live to Chris Wallace. By the way, my favorite thing, see where the eagle is on the set there, Kurt? See the eagle? So right below it, you can see the teleprompter. See that?
Yep.
And you can also see that glass panel. That's where the camera is that takes a picture of Chris Wallace while he's talking. It's behind that.
Oh, that's panel. Oh,
See, I've been
very
backstage
classy.
at these things before. It is. It's very fancy. Very cool. Very cool indeed. It looks as though the set is decorated with the founding documents, the Constitution, and the Declaration of Independence. So clearly, the 1619 project
And the
was not-
lyrics to Cardi B's WAP.
Oh, I think that's on
Which-
Joe Biden's side. That is correct.
That's on
Yeah.
his side because
Yeah.
she's an important achiever. All right.
All righty then.
Here we go. Thank you.
We know we
Cardi
have the
B.
audio. We know we have the audio on this, right, Micah? All right. So as soon as Chris Wallace takes it, we will send it that way.
So as
good.
Chris
We are getting
Wallace
up.
takes it, much like.
And by the way, and before anybody gets upset because there's no handshake, they have decided not to shake each other's hands because of COVID-19. So they're just going to go to the podium and go at it.
And
It's probably
wave.
best. Right.
How about fist bump?
It'll be awkward. Because, Biden will try to do the thing where, he keeps grasping and squeezing and trying to, you want to arm wrestle? You want to wrestle? Huh, kid?
You want to wrestle, young
kid?
fella?
And that'll just be embarrassing and awkward for everybody.
I used to wrestle when I was a sailor.
Trump will say, "Why are you tickling my palm like that? You already have the LGBT vote. Why would you do that?"
What?
Actually, he doesn't have the LGBT vote. Not at all. Oh, here we go. We're about to begin. I'm very excited.
Okay.
That's the dramatic shot right there. I'd recognize the back of that head anywhere.
Okay.
Wait a second. That didn't come out right at all.
All right. He's talking on Fox.
Oh, yeah. Let's get to it.
Okay. We're about 20 seconds behind on this feed.
Oh, all right. Well, then you'll know things before we do. Yeah, we can hear it through your microphone, Kurt.
Okay. Yeah. We're like 30 seconds behind on this. It's
Good
kind of
evening
ate up.
from the Health Education campus of Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic. I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The commission has designed the format, 6 roughly 15-minute segments with 2-minute answers from each candidate to the first question, then open discussion for the rest of each segment. Both campaigns have agreed to these rules. For the record, I decided the topics and the questions in each topic. I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the commission or the 2 candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic, which is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all 4 debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed the candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, no boos or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you, can focus on what the candidates have to say.
Don Jr.
No
wants
noise
to make
except
fart
right now, as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
I went for a striped tie. They both went for striped ties.
All right. How you doing, man?
Oh, they gave each other a little greeting there. How you doing, Joe?
How you doing, man?
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court.
So Biden showed up.
President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight, why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go
Compound
first.
questions.
2
Why are we
minutes.
doing compound
Thank you very much,
questions in the
Chris.
first?
I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, good in every way. In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time, even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump, thank you.
Good answer.
Same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this, and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
Billington.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is, and that say occurs when they vote for the United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States.
They did.
They
They're
did.
not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court. And the justice, and I have nothing, I'm not opposed.
He's kind of wandering.
She seems like a very fine person.
He called her justice
but she's
instead of
before
judge.
she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing that's on the court, and if
That's
it's
actually
struck
inaccurate.
down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man did.
So the question is about the Supreme Court, and he's talking about Obamacare.
When we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love
100 million people?
And so it's just not appropriate
of the
to do
American
this
public?
before this election. If he wins the election and the Senate is Democrat or Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February.
There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions.
Thank
as far
you.
as the say
Thank
is
you,
concerned, the
President
people already
Trump.
had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
During
election.
that period of time,
No, he's
we
not.
have an opening. I'm not
Trump's being
elected for
very
3 years.
calm.
I'm elected for 4 years.
Yes, he is.
And the
election's
100
already
million
started.
people,
Very fact
Joe,
based.
the
It's
100
very
million
correct.
people is totally wrong. I don't know
Joe.
where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Oh,
Well,
good.
you're certainly
Good.
going to socialist.
Go
You're
ahead.
going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
then
Vice
let
President.
Number one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
Why shouldn't we believe him? Remember when he said, if you like your doctor, you
party
keep your
doesn't say
doctor?
your party
That is
wants to
totally
go
believe it now.
socialist
My
medicine
party is
and
me.
socialist
Right
healthcare.
now, I am
and
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the
Whoa!
Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what
I'm in
in
charge
fact,
here.
approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe
Here's the
out
deal.
pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act? And
Joe, you've had
pre-existing conditions?
308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me
I'm
about this.
happy to talk about this.
And if you were here,
Look,
it
here's
wouldn't be
the deal.
200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to
draw.
ban China, which was heavily
And going
infected.
into
You
COVID
didn't
already,
want
he's
me to
got his
ban
response. Boom, boom, boom.
Europe, which was heavily
Mr. President,
You would have been much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Oh,
Mr.
you're-
President,
You're talking about 2
comes
million
Chris-
people.
You're not going to be able
President,
to
as
shut
the
him up.
moderator, we're
Chris
going to
Wallace
talk
to the
about COVID in the
rescue.
next segment, but go ahead.
Let me
Let
moderate.
me finish. The point is that the president
Biden
also
brought up
is opposed
COVID.
to Roe v.
Yeah,
Wade.
Biden can bring
That's
up
on the
COVID.
ballot as well.
Wallace
in the
says
court.
nothing.
In the
Trump
court.
responds to
And so
COVID,
that's
and
also
Wallace
at stake
backed Trump.
right now. And so the election is already
You don't know it's on the
begun.
ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is
you
it on the
said
ballot? It's not
you're-
on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would
And
you
you
be
don't
quiet
know
for a
her
minute?
view on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't
don't
know her
know.
view.
Biden,
Well, all right.
Biden
Let's talk.
made a misstatement, and Trump
We got a
absolutely
lot
thought
to
he was
unpack here,
confused.
gentlemen.
He
We got
said
a
it's
lot
on
of
the
time.
ballot. He said
On
Obamacare's on the
healthcare,
ballot. He said,
and then
"God."
we'll come back to Roe v.
was
Wade.
great.
All right.
Yeah,
Mr.
he's
President,
definitely
the Supreme Court
trying to
will
provoke.
hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask
Go
my
ahead.
question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well, I'll
I
give
got
you an
rid of the
and when
individual
I finish,
mandate.
I'm going to give you an
Excuse
opportunity.
me. I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That is
big
not a
chunk of
comprehensive
That
plan.
is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst
I
part of
didn't ask,
Obamacare.
Sir.
Chris,
You're
that was the
debating him,
worst
not
part
me.
of Obamacare.
Let me ask my
Well,
question.
I'll ask Joe.
Well,
the
yeah.
individual mandate was the most unpopular
Really?
aspect of
Mr.
Obamacare. I
President,
got rid of it.
I'd like
and
you
we
to,
will
Mr.
protect people
President,
with
I'm the
pre-existing
moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your
ahead.
question. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare, and just this last Thursday, you
Not your agent.
signed a largely symbolic
No, it's,
executive order
our
to
mutual
protect people
pal.
with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Fine. Well, first of
He
all, I
was
guess I'm
just
debating you,
answering
not
that.
him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something, that there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against Big Pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care.
What about
All of the
pre-existing
things that
conditions?
we've done,
He has not cut
insulin.
health
I give you
care.
an example.
Biden continuing to
Insulin.
laugh is
It's going
not a
to.
good
It
look
was
for him.
destroying
Biden
families,
laughing at
destroying
Trump is
people
not
because
good.
I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water, you want to know the truth. So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs that what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because
When in
they
fact-
pay just a tiny fraction.
As I say,
of
this
what we
is
do.
open discussion.
No,
let me
but
ask
this
you
is
about,
big.
this
This
you'll be
is
happy,
big stuff.
Sir, you'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare. And
Yes.
the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
well, if I can
sorry.
ask you the question, it will
Not what
end
your party says, by the way.
it will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would, Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option, number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie Sanders, who's far left, on the manifesto,
Well,
we call it, and that
manifesto-
gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
Are you saying
I'm not
you
going to
didn't
listen
agree?
to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm here standing facing you, old buddy.
Pocahontas would have left
Well,
2 days
I tell
early. You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to
on
do is
Super
hurt.
Tuesday. You got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to
With
make
what?
sure
What?
because
With what?
here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that
Clearly
everything
the
he's saying
strategy
so far
is to
is
knock
simply a lie.
Biden off
I'm not
his
here to
talking
call out
point
his lies.
here.
Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agree.
want to
Hey,
make sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish?
He doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be
you know,
surprised.
you pick
You'd be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy,
Talk,
the wrong
Joe,
night at
go.
the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Let
Now you're
him-
disavowing it.
There
Go ahead.
is no manifesto, number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan.
Folks,
that's absolutely agreed
folks, do you
to,
have
and
any
under that
idea
plan,
what
you have
this clown's
socialized,
doing?
They call it
Mr.
Do you
Medicare
have
for
any
President.
socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well, I
President,
tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care because
Bernie?
because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two,
yeah.
there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give them
Number
better
three.
health care at a much lower price
But-
because
and by the way,
Obamacare
he doesn't
is
know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a
fixed
plan.
it to an extent.
He has never
Obamacare,
done a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but probably don't.
Gentlemen, you realize if you're both speaking at the
It's no
same
good,
time,
and it's too expensive.
let the president speak. Go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better. And I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the
I think
individual
Trump's
mandate.
kicking some ass here.
Listen, this
I
is the way
think.
it is.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And that destroyed. That they shouldn't even
He
call it
does
Obamacare.
run the risk,
Then I
though,
had a
of coming
choice to
out
make.
too
Do I let my
strict?
people run it really well?
Letting Biden talk is
or
a
badly?
good thing.
If I run it
He needs to
badly,
let
they'll
Biden
probably
talk
blame him,
sometimes
but
because
they'll
that
blame me.
helps
But
him.
more importantly,
It
I want to
helps
help
him.
people. Okay? I
Because
said, you gotta
Biden will
run it
get
so
befuddled.
well.
That's what he's
And I
known for.
just had a meeting with them. They said the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
I got you.
Premiums
I
are
got
too
it.
high, and
That's
it
what his
doesn't work.
people- that's what his
So
people said.
we do
No,
want to
no,
get
no.
rid of it.
It's
Chris,
an
we
open
want to get rid of it.
I
and
understand
give
it, sir, but
something
I
that's
have to
cheaper
give
and
you
better.
roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan
Yeah.
for health care.
Of
course we do.
Please.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He
that's
has
not
none,
so.
like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right.
He's
I
against
have one final question for you.
Sure.
Mr. Vice President.
He doesn't have a plan. He doesn't know
If
what he's
Senate
talking about.
Republicans, we were
not
talking
really a good
originally about the Supreme Court here. If Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett,
Okay, good question.
there has
I see
been
where it's
talk
going.
about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact, it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your
Okay, good,
Democratic
fair
colleagues
question.
in
Well, I'm
the
sure
Senate
you
and
go.
Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak.
So he won't
You
say.
should go
Yeah,
out
you're right.
and vote. You're in voting
won't
now.
say.
Vote and let your
There you go.
senators know how
Are you gonna
strongly
pack
you
the
feel.
court?
Vote now.
gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't wanna
your
answer.
senators.
Trump's over
I'm
there
not going to answer
fucking
the
with it.
question
Why
because,
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the
You wanna
question
put a lot
is,
of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is,
justices,
the
radical
question-
left.
Will you
Who
shut
is
up,
on,
man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
Who's
is
on your
so
list?
right.
Gentlemen,
This is-
I think
This
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's gonna pack the
unpresidential.
court.
That
We
is
have
so-
I'm not gonna give a list.
We have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
Yeah,
47 years, you've done nothing. They understand.
All right.
That's true. The people do
second
understand.
subject is COVID-19, which is an awfully
If
serious
his strategy
subject,
was
so
to get under Biden's skin,
let's
he has
try to be
gotten under
serious.
Biden's skin.
We have had
He's
more
under
than
that
7
skin.
million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 deaths.
Oh, yeah, that
You
was
said over 7 million infected in the United States.
Keep yapping, man.
We, in fact,
shut
have
up.
5%, 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths.
Let's see if you can
40,000
go 2
people
minutes.
a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly
that's
disease.
why he said it.
What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic.
This would be the Bob
He panicked.
Woodward
In addition to
contribution.
that,
Yeah.
what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan. I laid out
Sir,
back
it's
in
his 2
March
minutes.
exactly
He was
what we
asked
should be
what he
doing.
would do.
And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It costs a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened to you,
You have 2 minutes, sir.
if we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should have closed our country.
Wait a
Wait a
minute.
minute.
It's his 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of your Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how to get the job
Well, you didn't do
done.
very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was
A
no
very-
economic recession.
Sir, you made a
Far
there was no
less lethal
recession.
disease,
you made
by
a
the way.
point. Let him answer
And
it.
there was we didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy that's being, he's shut
Wait,
down.
should we shut
The
down
reason
the
it's shut
economy or
down
not,
is because,
Larry?
look,
I thought we were having a
you
mask
folks at home,
mandate.
how many of you get up this morning?
He would argue, yeah, he would
Chair at
argue
the kitchen table
he wants to
because
shut it
someone
down
died of COVID?
immediately.
How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far
How
more
many
people.
That
Far
is-
more people.
And,
You would have been.
and by the way,
months late.
your own,
You were
his
months behind me,
his
Joe.
own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up, he said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers, just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine, we're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You don't
we
trust
Dr.
Johnson
Fauci.
and
He's an
Johnson,
anti-vaxxer.
We,
He's
and
now
by the
using
way,
this
And
platform
let
to tell
me
people
move
not
on
to take
to
the vaccine.
questions about the future, because you both have touched on one of the two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very
Still look at
political
it.
because the left, or I don't know if I call
So
them
you're
left, I don't know
suggesting
what I
that
call
the
them.
head of your
Holding notes
Operation
from
Warp
John.
Speed, Dr. Slaoui?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available, just like
He
Dr.
said it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also
I'm
be
talking about
after
when it's
that.
generally available, not when
Well,
it will
we're
be.
going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up. Logistically, they're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
This
delivering
is the
the
same
vaccine.
man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the same
That was
man.
said sarcastically,
That was
you
him.
know that.
I
That
don't-
was said sarcastically.
And so here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up, though,
You'll have
on
the
that.
vaccine
I
sooner
want to
than
pick
that.
up on this question, though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying
Everybody
you can't, or
knows.
Senator
And
Harris
you
is saying you
can't
can't
put
trust the
pressure on
scientists.
them.
Well, no,
We
you
want
can't
him to
trust the
put pressure
scientists.
on
She didn't say that. You can't
She,
trust
she
the
said the public health
Did say
experts,
that.
quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital,
Millions.
that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not. They're the people. And by
I
the way,
spoke to the
and Fauci,
scientists that are in
and
charge.
By the way,
they will have
and
the vaccine very
does-
soon.
Let him finish.
Do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market, one of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died, and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
So-
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years, you've done nothing.
Let's have this debate.
And if
We'll
you
see
would have
who's
had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
if you would have had
What did he just say? Let's have
the
to say where.
charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
See,
and it's
We're going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast.
Okay.
Look forward to talking.
When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how
No,
the
Biden
virus
hasn't
is
taken an
handled
approach
going
at
forward
all.
by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to provide
that
them
to Nancy
plastic.
Pelosi.
Well, just shush for a minute.
Tell it to Nancy Pelosi. And Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with him in the Senate. And he sits on his golf course. And I mean, literally, think about it.
Hey,
probably
Larry,
played more
on
than I
Twitter,
do, Joe.
David Trump has
What
announced
about
that
this
Trump's
question of
already
reopenings
lost.
and the
He's
fact-
angry.
He wants to shut down this country.
Who did?
And I want to keep it open.
David
And we did
Trump.
a great
He
thing
just
by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute,
Let
Joe.
him
Let me
finish,
shut
sir.
you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election on November 3rd.
I want to move on to another
because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to
thing.
another subject.
I've got to respond.
But those states are not
subject.
doing well that are shut down
Which is
right
gotta
now.
respond to that.
Wants to
President
shut
Trump,
down the
you
whole
have
country.
begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are
of
okay.
of
You have to
masks?
understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to. But I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rallies.
when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say
Vice President Biden. Go
Good
ahead,
for
sir.
him.
Look,
That's right.
the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The Congress.
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks and social distance between now and January, we'd probably
Right.
save
Keep
up to
repeating all of it, memorize
100,000
lines.
lives. It matters.
And they've also
It
said the
matters.
opposite. They've
And
also said
no serious person said the opposite.
They've
No
also said, well, look
serious
at
all right, I wanna
Dr.
ask
Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the
He
opposite.
did not
I
say
want to
the
ask you, we
opposite.
got a
said
little
very
bit more than a
strongly,
minute left in this
masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks are good.
I
I'm
wanna
okay
ask-
with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both about
masks.
one last subject because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people.
Outside.
Outside, yes, sir, agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with
Because nobody will show up.
people with
It's true. Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big
You made
rallies?
Chris
Why
Wallace
you
laugh
not?
at that.
You go first. sir.
Fantastic.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done
worried
a great
about it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you
for
not worried
hangars,
about
and we
the
have a
disease
lot of
issue,
people.
sir?
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours' notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see
Yes, sir.
one of the last big rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no negative effect.
No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect. And we've had 35, 40,000 people at these rallies.
Just quickly finish up because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled the social distancing and people wearing masks, basically encouraged them not to.
All right.
He's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
The economy is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown.
Much faster.
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people, between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening at some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
Sir, wait, no, sir. I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America.
Joe wants
more
of a
open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools. Why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, They were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. Then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right. Your time is up, sir. Well, we are going to get to...
I have to respond to that.
Well, you both had 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town. And I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives. They'll be careful, but they want their schools open. I'm the one that brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And the people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know how I found out? When he took the phony ad.
Gentlemen, we're going to get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax.
Well, I'm excited here. This means he's going to... So he's going to ask about the Hillary story.
A lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers. I paid $38 million 1 year. I paid $27 million.
Show us your tax returns.
I went... you'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under-leveraged because the assets are extremely good, and we have a very, I built a great company.
I'm asking you a specific question, which is...
let me tell you.
I understand all of that. I understand all of that. No, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
Chris Wallace obviously wants that.
Millions of dollars.
So not 750.
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it. And you'll get to see it. But let me just tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something, that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build a building and we get tax credits, like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired right after that happened. But
Vice President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher makes on the money a school teacher makes is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact, need the help. People out there need help.
Why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't president. Because you weren't president screwing things up.
You were a senator.
You're the worst president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe. I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing, including fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care of your vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward. Because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we have to.
Wait, he's
going
going
to
to
make
take
this federal government spend
$4 billion
$600 billion
and it'll
on everything
create
from
$1 trillion
ships
of
to
economic
steel
growth.
to buildings and the like.
It's a great investment.
And under my proposal,
That's a
we're going to
Democratic
make sure
great
that
ROI.
every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But
in
respectfully,
America.
sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 19 companies, 91 companies, federal, I mean, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it before when you were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was
Right.
your tax proposal.
I got it done. And you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed like it's never boomed
The economy
before.
is
Mr.
busted.
President,
Let me finish.
Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for the American people.
But let me.
Excuse me.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming. It turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery since economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty of companies that are already here, they'll leave for other places. They will leave, and you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look, we inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't booming.
He blew it.
It wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery since 1929.
Is it fair to say he blew it when, in fact, when there was record low unemployment before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse me, Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris,
number three.
They said it would take. No, you were number two.
Number two, number three.
Chris,
Wait, what was
Chris,
number two?
They said it would take a miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing. Part of my standard fare.
I'm the guy that brought back the automobile industry.
All right, let him.
We brought back. I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having that.
And they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest deficit trade deficit with Mexico.
China ate your lunch, Joe, and no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars. Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also, while we're at it, why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
None of that is true.
Let him answer.
None of that is true.
Oh, really? He didn't get $3.5 million?
Mr. President,
Mr.
President, please.
Totally discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
well, wait, he didn't get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
he got $3.5 million.
It is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr. President, it's an open discussion, please.
It's a fact.
Well, you have raised an issue. Let the Vice President answer.
Discredited.
Did Burisma pay him $183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr. President,
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
Mr. President, let him answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
By who? The media?
By everybody. Well, by the media, by our allies, by the World Bank. by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact, even the people who testified under oath.
So let me ask you this.
Go
ahead, Mr. I'm listening to you.
People under,
you got $3.5 million from Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd
honorably.
like to know who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list of the people who testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't do a good job. With you,
go ahead. Wait a minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me.
Hey, let me just say, Joe.
No. I'm Mr. President.
$3.5 million, Joe.
That is simply
Why did he deserve $3.5 million from Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's already...
My family lost a fortune by coming down and helping us with government.
And that's such a...
Mr. President. Every single one of them lost a fortune.
This is not about my family or his family. It's about your family. The American people. He doesn't... That's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about here.
All right, that's the end of the segment. We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Vice President,
can I be honest? It's a very important. He stood up.
No, the answer to the question is no.
Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you
that is absolutely
you know what,
not true.
You're going to have
true,
gentlemen. I hate to raise my voice, but it seems to be. Why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the deal. We have
Okay, that was funny.
6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting
that's
than he
all right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than, sir, less than,
plenty.
No, less than you have. Let's please continue on.
Okay,
The issue
Candy.
of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you
Oh no,
to
maybe
launch
he's
this
going
run
to
for
call
president.
here. Hold on.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for Black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president has ever said anything like that.
It is who's
now, second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up the Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African-American community.
So,
President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with
he
racism?
did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator,
shut
and
up,
I'm
Joe.
letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why, if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time, because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that, because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day, and they put up their hands, and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is. There's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, to the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen.
I thought he worked it out at the beer summit.
See what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it. But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right.
I like that that's by the way.
When they run through the middle of a town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place,
that
and you
is
say
not
peaceful protest.
President
No,
Trump,
it's
I'm not
not,
asking.
but you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the
Yes,
issue
go
of
ahead,
race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment. This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody else. And he would know.
What is radical about racial sensitivity training, sir?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and, frankly, very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's the racist.
You just don't know.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about
You
this.
don't
than he
know.
does.
Let him finish.
Joe Biden just called the president a
The fact is
racist.
that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important that people know they don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson, you go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but
Lord.
The reason is that
ridiculous.
the Democrats that run these cities don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
violent
Are you
crime.
in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow it.
Are you in favor of law and order? Go
Yes,
ahead,
I'm
say
in
it.
favor.
You asked a
Everybody's in favor
question,
of
let him finish.
Law and
He
order.
loses
Law
lefty.
and
Let
order.
him- let him answer.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly.
Okay.
And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 17%, 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more
he
in
had-
ours.
All right, we're
He
now.
is president of the
Mr. President,
United
you're going
States
to.
of America.
We
Mr.
were
President,
breaking every record in the
Mr.
book.
President, you're going to be very happy because
And
we're now going to
excuse
talk
me,
about law and order.
Places we had trouble were Democratic-run cities.
That's
and
exactly
those
my question.
Democratic-
There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer, particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact, there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died, shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. Crime. It is
cities.
crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, we would have our suburbs would be gone. By the way, our suburbs would be gone, and you would see problems like you've
He
never
would
seen.
know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So much
I was
better.
raised.
Go ahead. Wait a minute.
I was
So much
raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles on racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice
He didn't
and or
mention race.
to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything.
Yeah.
That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining
That would be the
policing.
manifesto.
First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
It means
let me, if I might finish the question. What does reimagining policing mean, and do you support the Black Lives Matter call for community control of policing?
Look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police offices. As a matter of fact, local police, The only one defunding it, his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down.
That's not what Black
So
Lives
we have
Matter
to be
wants.
That's
engaged.
not what they're talking about, Chris. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law
Would you-
support.
look,
He has no law enforcement
That's not
support.
true.
Almost
That's
nothing.
Look,
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go
Look,
ahead.
look.
Think. We have time.
we don't have time to do
No,
anything.
think
So
about
listen,
it.
look,
Name
folks,
one law enforcement group that came out and
I
supported
think, gentlemen,
you.
I think I'm going
That's
to
great.
take back the
There aren't.
moderator's
I don't
role,
think there
and
are any.
I want to get to another subject,
Chris
which is the
Wallace
issue
for
of
the
protests
save.
in many cities
There he goes.
that have turned violent.
Chris
In
for the
Portland,
rescue.
Oregon, especially,
Chris
we had
Wallace for the
more than
rescue.
100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned
We're not
into
peaceful.
riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear. I've made it clear in my public statements that the
But he
violence
is the
should be
Democratic Party.
prosecuted. It should be prosecuted. And anyone who commits it
But
should
you've
be
never called
prosecuted.
for the people,
He's never
the
said
leader.
that.
Excuse me, sir. You have never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to call and
Because
bring
they-
in the National Guard and knock
Well,
off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Oh, really?
Here,
Oh, really?
here's the
But
thing.
I sent in the
wait, I
U.S.
asked him a
Marshals to
question.
get the killer
No,
of the
that-
young man in the middle of the street. They shot him, and for 3
Mr.
days,
President Trump,
Portland
President
wouldn't do
Trump,
anything. I
please
had to send
interrupt
in
and-
the U.S. Marshals.
President
They
Trump,
took care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, you know, his own former spokesperson said, you know, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said that.
She said that.
I don't-
And so here's the
All right.
But here's the point. The point is that that's what he is, keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going
Say
in and
amplify, you
talking to
piece of
people
crap.
and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly,
And-
every single solitary
Okay,
time.
and to end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly
Well, wait,
criticized.
I have to answer his
No,
statement.
you have
His statement.
repeatedly.
Wait,
you have
just one
no.
second.
You've been talking
He
back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
I'm asking you.
I would
no,
love to
you know,
end it.
sir.
I would love to end it, and
you
we
know, if
would
you want to
very-
switch seats,
We would very quickly.
We could do that, but
I'd
I'm
send
no,
in
I-
the National Guard. It would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay,
But they
good.
don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that
Oh,
they
good Lord.
need to stand
He
down
already
and not
has. He does
add
it.
to
He's
the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm willing
prepared
to
to
do that,
specifically
but
Do it.
Well,
I
go
would
ahead,
say,
sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists and
Who would
right
you like me to
supremacists.
condemn?
White
Proud Boys.
supremacists and right-wing
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
His
This
own
is a left-wing.
FBI director
This
said
is a
the threat
left-wing
of
Go ahead,
problem.
white
Go ahead, sir.
supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
you gotta be
not
kidding.
militia. That's what his
It's an idea.
FBI,
Okay.
FBI director
Gentlemen,
said.
Well,
we're
then
gonna-
you know what?
No,
He's
no, we're
wrong.
done. We're done, sir. We're moving on to the next. We're
Everybody
moving.
in
Bad
your
is over the head. That's
administration.
not an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is bad.
administration tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas.
Antifa is a dangerous
All right,
radical
gentlemen,
group.
we're now moving on to the Trump
And
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When
in
a
2
president,
seconds.
I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, don't compare me to the Almighty, compare me to the alternative. And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things, where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. It was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term, 300 judges. It's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused a recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head-to-head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got $3.5 million.
And by the way, my son...
Wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word.
Can you add no, I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah, yes, you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Distinguished Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking about Hunter? Are you talking about Hunter?
I'm talking about my son, Bo Biden. I
don't know Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He wasn't dishonorably.
Cocaine use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you
None of
became
that
vice
is
president,
true.
he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
He
My
made a
son-
fortune.
My son.
And he didn't have a job.
My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
But why was he
proud of
given
my
tens
son.
of millions
All
of
right, but he
dollars?
wasn't given
All right.
tens of millions of
He was
dollars.
given
That
tens
is
of
totally,
millions of
that's
dollars.
totally
President Trump,
discredited.
we've already been through.
Totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial
So do I.
subjects. Well, as the moderator, sir, I'm going
He's
to make
never
a
had
judgment
to
call
answer a
here.
question.
$3.5 million
Okay, great.
from the
Let's
mayor
talk
of
about-
Moscow.
let's talk
That is
about-
not
I think
true.
it's a terrible
That
thing.
report is totally
Why did he get it?
discredited.
I
Mitt
think,
Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced
I'd like
hundreds
to talk
of thousands
about
of people.
climate change.
When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful, clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have
believe?
cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. We're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very
Do you
exciting
believe
for a lot of people.
that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of this
I think
planet?
a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every year, I get the call, California's burning. California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. In Europe, they live their forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground. That's burning down because of a lack of management.
But, sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars?
Well, not only, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car.
What's Chris
and
Wallace
you're talking
running
about
for?
a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by $3,500.
In the case of California, they've simply ignored
No, but you would
your
take a lot of cars
rollback.
off the market because
That's actually a very good point the president
people
is
would be
making there, and
able
it's
to
very
afford a
smart.
car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And and I'm okay with electric cars, too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking. ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration of the Recovery Act, I was able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that, in fact, is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship to with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More
That's
carbon
all we need to do is sign a document in Paris,
than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, make sure that he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is the guy who says that, well, the fact that it's all true. And here's the deal.
He's talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings and rebuild the building.
No,
it's the dumbest, most ridiculous. Where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out, where they want to take out the cows too. That's not true either, right? This is a $100 trillion.
Look,
that's more money than our country could make in 100 years if we're
not
going
the case.
All right, let me because I actually wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy-efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good-paying jobs.
Let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good-paying jobs, and these tax incentives to people for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that.
That's
at all.
He did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up.
We are going to be in a position where we can create hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars now, on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. They didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. We, in fact, but the rest of the world, we've got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen.
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does. India does. They all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion.
That is
not
not
$20
my
billion.
plan.
That's
the Green
well,
New
you want to
Deal
rebuild every
is
building.
not my plan.
You want to rebuild every.
If he knew anything about, if he knew anything
He made a
about,
statement about the military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
what
not
he
true.
did is he
You're done
said
in this segment.
he called
Mr.
the military
Mr. Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
and he
did
said
not
it on
say
tape.
that.
He said
Mr.
stupid
Please,
bastards. He
not
said
true.
it.
Stop.
I would never
I
say
would
that
Play
to
it.
the military.
Play it.
Go ahead.
You're
Mr.
on
Vice
tape.
President answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all his rantings was the
You
final
don't remember
question.
much.
I'm in a
Yeah,
little
you
trouble
can't
myself,
remember a
but
damn thing.
and about the
remember
economy
anything.
and about this question of what it's
2
going
on
to
1.
cost.
All right,
The economy.
Kurt Schlichter,
I
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your environmental
Okay, you're out
agenda
here,
will do.
Larry.
The Green New Deal.
All right, yeah, I
pays
don't
for
blame you if you
itself
want to
as we
wrap
move
up as soon
forward.
as this
You're
thing
not
is
going to
over.
build
Enjoy your
plants that, in
post
fact,
and then
are
get out of here.
great polluting plants.
So do you
We're going to
support
build
the Green New Deal?
Thanks, everybody. Keep watching here.
No, I don't support the Green
Oh,
New
you
Deal.
don't? Oh, well, that's a big statement.
I
That
support
means you
the
just lost the radical left.
I
Oh,
support
you
the
don't.
Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan,
Biden
which is different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment, election integrity. As we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early. How
The hell is
confident
this?
should we be that this will be a fair election? And what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks, because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after Election Day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com. Decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated
Except
and
for all the
cheating.
fraud,
They said that.
which
The fact
is a
is
thing.
that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because
Remember,
enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not, when the votes are counted, and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change, or you get 4 more years of these lies?
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition, because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won, and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that, because we caught you in a sense. And President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot okay? Solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th? November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that,
sir,
all run by
2
Democrats.
minutes is 2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President Trump,
it's a rigged election.
You're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them, we don't like them, we don't like them.
But what are you going to do about it? If there are millions of ballots going out right now,
what you do is you go and vote. You do a solicited ballot, and that's okay, or you go and vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people...
You go and vote. You go and vote,
but
like
what I'm
they
saying is,
like they used to in the old.
Millions of people.
You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia. Mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country.
There is no.
This is not.
There is no.
This is not going to end well.
There is no evidence
this is
of that.
not going to end well.
5 states have had mail-in ballots for the last decade or more. 5, including 2 Republican states. And you don't have to solicit the ballot. It's sent to you. It's sent to your home. What we're saying is, they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by the time, by election day. If it doesn't get in until the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because he knows the outcome.
You're wrong.
I want to continue with you on this, Vice President Biden.
Chris, he's so wrong when he makes a statement like that.
Excuse me. Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this, because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you, that is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, Chris, when you have 80 million ballots,
I have a final
sending
question.
and swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't, and already there's been fraud.
Now, mail service delivers 185 million pieces of mail a day.
In 8 states, we can keep talking. In 8 states, election workers are prohibited, currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and flatten them until Election Day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks.
Could be months.
Until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest? And will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They were called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair election, I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you what,
does that
from
mean,
a common sense,
does that mean you're going to tell your people to take to the street?
It means you have a fraudulent election. You're sending out 80 million ballots. They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one. Number two, they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
you think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. We count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War, in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why was it not? Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots, that somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established. Take a look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
I asked you had an opportunity to respond.
Look at Carolyn Maloney.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what happened.
Vice President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome. And I'll be a president not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to see an honest ballot count.
Gentlemen, you say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate?
Honest ballot count.
We're going to leave it there. To be continued as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating in the first of 3 debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic for hosting this event. The next debate, sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates, will be 1 week from tomorrow, October 7th, at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. The 2 vice presidential nominees, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris, will debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch. Until then, thank you and good night.
Oh, thank God it's over. Now, I don't want to be one of those guys who passionately hates the debate. I hate the debate unpassionately. I just wanted to do other things tonight. But here I am for you, all you people here on wonderful Town Hall. And I am definitely missing my partner, Larry O'Connor, because now I have to be both straight man and the comic relief. What did we see tonight? Wow. Trump came out. He seemed firm and determined. I don't think he seemed angry. I think Biden didn't wet himself. Biden was sort of coherent. He was a little off. He threw out some whoppers, and he got a huge assist from Chris Wallace. I mean, he got a huge assist. I mean, like, hey, are you going to pack the Supreme Court? Well, I'm not going to answer that. Okay, cool. Trump, what do you think of global warming? Well, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Well, what about global warming? Global warming! Global warming! I thought Chris Wallace was going to try and do a better job being more fair simply because of his own reputation. But I think he got mad at Trump. He threw in the climate change crap because it's a giant hoax and a fraud. That wasn't one of the agreed topics. Now, that's okay. I'm not picky. I think it just shows that Chris Wallace wanted to screw with the president. He got mad at the president, decided to screw with him that way. I think it went very well for the president. I think the president looked tough. I think Biden looked... I don't know. I'm trying to figure out who's the guy who goes, I really like this Biden guy. He's got a lot of style. Now, I definitely think the big loser, though, was Chris Wallace. I mean, that was just, I understand he was frustrated, but he was manifestly tougher on the president than he was on Joe Biden. And he saved Joe Biden several times. Name a police agency that supports you. Anywho, let's move on. So that's kind of what I think. I'm going to have to think about it a little more. I think Trump, if somebody won, it was Trump. I don't think he put Biden in a hole. But I don't think Biden did great. And I think he looked like he needed the help of Wallace. And I think it reaffirmed what all of us know, is that Donald Trump is running against the entire establishment, and that includes the media. Anyway, I want to thank you for Town Hall, my pal Larry O'Connor, Storm Palia, Mika Raid, all the rest of the guys at Townhall Media. You can follow me on Twitter. I'll probably be talking about this shit later after I get myself a nice big drink. So thanks a lot for coming on Town Hall. Keep it here. We may be doing our thing Thursday, so you want to have that in your life. And we will both rock and roll here at Town Hall. Thanks a lot.